guys, welcome back to another video. Following last week's video where I shared tips and tricks on how to take the best photos of your dog for Instagram, I wanted to follow up by sharing how I edit my photos, what techniques and tools that I use for post-processing, and show you guys how exactly I edit for my Instagram. One of the things that I had to make up for when I first started sharing photos on Instagram was my lack of photography skills. I wasn't always using the right equipment, nor was I in front of those clean white walls that it appeared I was shooting in front of. Most of the look from my early Instagram days came through Photoshop magic. This is just the way that I've learned to edit my photos throughout the years. So the first thing that I do is I pull the shot that I like into Photoshop. Number one on my list is cleaning up the setting. I check to make sure I like the perspective of the shot, the horizon is straight, and any distractions like leashes or leaves are taken out. If I've shot against a fake background like a poster board, I clean everything up around it so it looks like my pup is sitting in front of a studio backdrop or wall. This is one of the most common questions I've gotten throughout the years is, how do you always have a clean background or a white wall to shoot against? I don't. It's a lot of editing and sort of thinking about what I want the end product to be when I take the photo. When you're shooting, it's a good idea to think about what you want to do when you're editing so that you can set yourself up for success with the best photo possible to begin with. With environmental shots, I typically look for places outdoors where I can mimic this technique. This can just be a clean background that happens to be around where the dog is or the subject of my shoot that I can typically extend later. I've done it in front of a block of cement that happened to be a planter in the street. I truly believe that editing is half the magic of photography, and I really love using this technique to create that whimsical feel of a lot of the photos that I share, especially when you can't quite tell what the setting is or how the photo was taken. Next up is deciding how you want your photo to be cropped on the feed. Is it going to be a square? Do you want it to be 4x5 portrait? Here is where I decide how much white space exactly goes into my photo. The general rule of thumb is to use the rule of thirds. You can also go the route of centering your subject, which happens to work really well on Instagram's square-driven platform. I would recommend, if you can, to start sharing your photos in 4x5. This is the vertical portrait orientation, just because it takes up more screen space and you get more real estate when you're sharing your photos on somebody's phone. At this point, don't be afraid to play around with perspective. Maybe if the shot is more interesting, if you flip it upside down. I've definitely done that before. All right, so moving on to step 3. This is where I adjust the brightness, the color, do a little bit of post-processing in Photoshop. Once I'm happy with the crop, I adjust at a high level for settings like brightness, saturation. At this stage, I'm not actually looking to perfect everything about the photo and get it to look exactly like how the rest of my photos are edited. I'm just trying to get it to about 80 or 90% before it goes off to the final step. Step 4 is applying presets or filters. So this can be done in the app of your choice, whether it be Lightroom or VSCO. I actually prefer doing it on my phone. I really love the VSCO app. That's what I've been using since I began sharing my photos on Instagram. So for me, my preference is to send my photo directly to my phone. I'll pull it open in VSCO. The nice thing is that VSCO actually recently released a feature where you can copy edits that you've made to another photo and paste it to a new one. So it really makes applying the same treatment to your photos way easier and faster. Once your photo has gone through edits in Photoshop, cropping, and filtering, the next step is to apply an Instagram filter. Now this step is totally optional, and I know you've already filtered through Lightroom or VSCO. I found that adding a small amount of an Instagram filter to a photo right before it's posted, it really gives my feed a consistent, nice look. My filter of choice is gingham, and I usually use it at about a 15 to 20% strength. An occasional step 6 that comes into play for me is recomposing a photo. So I've shared in a blog post before on how I plan my feed. I always post to a test account. I just like to see what the photo is going to look like in the environment of Instagram before I share it. Sometimes I'll post the photo to my test account and I'll think, I don't really like how that looks around the other photos that I've already posted. So at this point, I might go back to step 2 and play around with the composition again, move around the subject, see if that helps. I also wanted to share a few things to watch out for when you're editing. These are some common mistakes that I've seen and been guilty of in the past. So the first one is over-shopping the photo. I definitely have been guilty of this in the past, especially as I've been working on my Photoshop and editing skills. It's okay if a photo is not working out to the vision that you have in your mind. Just don't worry about over-photoshopping it if you can't get it to where you want it to be. The great thing about Instagram, especially as we progress to 2020, is that people love real, raw, and authentic photos. So I've actually been giving myself a little bit more of a break in editing as this has become more of a trend. The second thing to watch out for is blowing out the exposure. So a lot of people, when they want bright, clean, airy feeling photos, they pump the brightness way up and the highlights get totally blown out in a photo. My personal preference is to keep the highlights really low on all of my photos. Even in VSCO, sometimes I'll bump the brightness up, but then bring the highlights down to sort of give the photo a more muted look. That pretty much wraps it up for how I edit my photos on Instagram. I highly encourage everyone to learn from others, develop your own techniques and your own style. It's super rewarding and fun when you can improve your work, especially over the course of many years. I've been loving doing that with sharing photos of Kokoro and Chibi and hearing your guys' feedback. Thank you guys for taking the time to watch this video. Don't forget to like and subscribe so you don't miss our new videos every week. We'll see you guys next time.